fish sauce that's oyster sauce, oyster flavored. There's soy sauce. This one is oyster. And it's made in this country. This is time and it's made because oysters only cost where it's done. I know it costs more to buy American made.
Come right on in and sit down here. We still have some chairs over there. As you know, we are here to celebrate and remember the life of Kenneth Duke Morrison III, better known to his family as Buzz. We're starting out this afternoon with readings from the Dalai Lama and the Buddha. And Mary Fisher, would you come forward, please, and read?
Though I've known Buzz for years, it was during his last illness that I had time to really get to know him. I learned to admire not only his bright mind, courage, and good humor, but I learned of his extensive travels and his great appreciation for other cultures and spiritual paths. His sister, Pat, my good friend, learned after his death that he was a student of yoga. She also found a book of writing by the Dalai Lama on his tabletop. It's this very book, and it opened to the passage that I will now read. And I quote, "The process of dying involves a serial cessation or dissolution of the four internal elements: earth, the hard substance of the body; water, fluids; fire, heat; and wind, energy, movement. In ordinary life, these elements serve as the basis for consciousness. When the earth element, or hard substance of your body, dissolves into the water element, the external indication is that your body becomes thinner. Internally, you see what appears to be a mirage seen in the desert. When the water element of your body dissolves into the fire element, the external signs are that the fluids in your body dry. Internally, you see what has been described as puffs of smoke from a chimney, or smoke floating through a room. When the fire element of your body dissolves into the wind or air element, the external indication is that the heat in your body diminishes. Internally, you see what looks like fireflies at night, or like scattering sparks. Next, the wind, or movement of energy in your body, dissolves into consciousness, and your outer breath ceases. At this time, you see an appearance like the light above a flickering candle flame when the fuel has almost been used up. The final step in the process of dying is when the mind itself turns into the fully aware mind of clear light, called the fundamental innate mind of clear light. This is the most subtle, profound, and powerful level of consciousness. It is like the sky's natural state at dawn, not sunrise, without moonlight, sunlight, or darkness. I will conclude with a passage by the Buddha describing the final step into clear light. May the mother and child clear lights meet when near attainment dissolves into the all empty, and all conceptual multiplication cease, and an experience like an autumn sky free from polluting conditions dawns."
Thank you, Mary. Now I'd like to share a few of the things out of Ken's history and some family stories with you, if I might. He was born in Baltimore, Maryland on June 25th, 1950. He weighed 8 pounds, 12 ounces, and he had a mop of unruly black hair that you can still see in pictures. He was named Kenneth Duke Morrison III after his grandfather, but was always called Buzz by his family because there were so many other Kens in the family. When he was born, Ken had one older sister, Pat, and later 2 other sisters were born. On the day Ken was born, his father came to visit his mom in the hospital, and he told her that the Korean War had just started. And they wondered what it would mean for them. What it meant was that his dad would be recalled into the Air Force. He had previously served in the U.S. Army in World War II, and his mother had been away during World War II. When Ken was a baby, his father was stationed at Randolph Field, and they lived at 500 East Almas Drive in Almas Park on the 2nd floor. His older sister, Pat, attended elementary school here in San Antonio, and his younger sister was born here. While their mom was in the hospital, Ken and Pat stayed with their uncle, who was stationed at Kelly Field. So Buzz had many connections with San Antonio at the beginning of his life, and then again, of course, at the end of his life here at Chandler, a very special experience for him. Growing up, Ken was the type of boy who challenged everyone, including his parents, sisters, and especially his teachers. He had a rat as a pet, and one day, he was the last to leave his house before school, and he took the rat and put it into his pocket. His first class at school was his French class, and in the middle of the class, he took the rat out of his pocket and gently deposited it on the floor. Of course, it started racing around the class frantically, and the French teacher jumped up on her desk and screamed. Pat and Buzz have 2 younger sisters, the youngest being 15 years younger than Pat. Now, when Pat had a date at home, the siblings concocted various pranks. The older sister had done sort of taking care of him some and disciplining him some, so they felt they needed to do something in return, I think. One of the most memorable was the time they hid behind the couch, the typical joke in the New Yorker, until Pat and her date sat quietly down. Shortly afterward, they jumped up suddenly and made their presence known. On another occasion, one of her siblings answered the door when a first-time date showed up. She looked up at the date with big eyes and said, "Are you going to be my new daddy?" Well, he never showed up again. As a result of her siblings, Pat's parents never had to worry about what a date might do, at least at home. Ken went into the Army during the Vietnam War and was trained here in San Antonio to perform dental work. Later, he worked on a large ship in the engine room, and being a very intelligent young man, he quickly decided that he would rather be a radio operator. After leaving the military, he went into the Merchant Marine and worked with radios and became a Merchant Marine officer. After 20 years, he retired. He had a razor-sharp mind and loved to study. He took a variety of classes during his military and Merchant Marine days and continued to do so, always fascinated with a new subject. He was a voracious reader and loved books, magazines, and newspapers. While on ships in the Merchant Marine, he regularly shared the news with other ships as they passed. Of course, that was in the prehistory days before ubiquitous radio and TV on ships. He received acknowledgments from crews of other ships thanking him for this service, an early interest in news, what he had a great deal of later. He was in Bahrain on the night of the first Iraqi war began. He volunteered to be the radio operator on a Kuwaiti flag tanker, which was immediately reflagged as American. He said that he wanted to do that so that he could take the place of someone with a wife and children, and they wouldn't have to be on that ship. And of course, sitting on a tanker in a war zone is like riding on a bomb approaching a fire. Ken loved plants and took great care of them. He didn't have yards, but he always had plants when he could. A year ago, Pat gave him a poinsettia for Christmas, and he still had it growing happily on his balcony this fall when he got too sick to take care of it. He loved to debate and argue about almost anything. Sometimes Pat would switch sides during a discussion to agree with him, and he would immediately switch sides also. Ken had a great smile, and people were attracted to him. From his childhood days, he genuinely liked people older than himself. After he had sitters with him here at Chandler, he told Pat that he really liked them, but he wished he had known them under other circumstances. Even close to the end, he had a mischievous sense of humor. I remember his expression as he said, "Wow," and shared something very interesting to him. Recently, he became very interested in yoga and really enjoyed his yoga teacher and classes. His time of meditation had become very important to Ken. He practiced the steps of yoga that helped him prepare for his death, which was remarkably peaceful. Mary Fisher mentioned some of those steps. Christus Santa Rosa Hospice sent him a priest here to visit with him, and at that time he was anointed, which really touched him. Pat and the family want to thank so many of you on Ken's behalf. Everyone in this room for being here and caring about Pat and Tom and Ken. Most of all, her husband Tom, for his help, understanding, and love. Pat's friend Carol McMorris and all of her other friends that were so dear. Dr. Haley and the staff at the VA hospital, where he not only got the very best of medical care, but also remarkable support and friendship, which we don't often get or often don't get in hospitals. Thanks to Santa Rosa Christus Hospice, where he was here, that they were helping. His caregivers, Maria, Darling, Sylvia, Lupe, Ashley, and Angie. And especially at Chandler. For those of you who are residents here, he really enjoyed his time here and he appreciated your greetings in the hall and on the elevator. He was in his room so much that you may not have seen him a whole lot, but he really appreciated your attention when he was there. The staff here is very special, including O'Reilly the cook, Trini, jack of all trades, Laura, administrator to Brandy Davis, and Morningside Minister's CEO, Alvin Lowenberg, who would like to make a few remarks. Alan?
Thank you, Bill. It's my pleasure to say a few words about the Sims family and about Ken. Tom and Pat have been a part of Morningside Ministries for a number of years. Pat served very ably on the board here and led us in a lot of very positive directions. Her quiet leadership put us on the straight and narrow many times, and we're very grateful to that. And Tom has become a friend over the last few years as well. We are very fortunate here to have had the time to get to know Ken. It's a great honor to us that he came and made his home with us, his final home with us over the past several years. It's interesting that we have a great opportunity at Morningside to spend our time with people and to learn about people, have them share our lives, and we have the opportunity to share their lives. But sometimes we forget that there was a life before they came to Morningside Ministries, which was mentioned just a few minutes ago. I think Ken expressed that he wished he'd known the residents at another time. And to hear some of the memories that you shared about Ken are things I'm sure that many of us did not know. And so it's, even though we knew that he had done many things prior to becoming a resident here at Chandler, we didn't know he had done so many things. Had served in the military. I knew he had been a radio operator, but the other things that were talked about were things that I would think many of us here at Chandler, even though we knew Ken well, did not know about him. So it's great to experience some of those memories that all of you have had. You know, Ken, we knew Ken here as a friend, as a resident. Residents knew him as a neighbor. Those of you who